What happens when a modern military, armed with heavy machine guns, declares war on a flock of flightless birds? Well, today we're diving into an explainer on exactly that. Welcome to the Great Emu War of 1932. It's arguably the most bizarre and humiliating military failure in history.
I mean, it sounds like an absurd comedy sketch, doesn't it? But this actually happened. The Australian military officially launched an armed offensive against native wildlife. And spoiler alert, the birds won.
20,000. That's the staggering number of emus that formed a literal feathered army. Driven by a massive drought, they invaded the Western Australian wheat belt, leaving local farmers completely desperate and facing total ruin.
So let's look at the background. It was essentially soldiers versus the environment.
To really wrap our heads around why this clash happened, we have to look at the brutal agricultural crisis going on at the time. After World War I, the Australian government settled thousands of veterans on marginal farmland. By 1932, these soldier settlers were already getting crushed by a devastating combination of the Great Depression and a severe drought. And then, migrating from the inland to the coast right after their breeding season, 20,000 hungry emus showed up looking for food and water.
And these birds didn't just casually graze. They absolutely decimated the precious wheat crops. Their massive bodies smashed huge gaps straight through the carefully constructed rabbit-proof fences, which basically opened the floodgates for other pests to come in and ravage the land. They even drank critical farm irrigation channels entirely dry. Pushed to the absolute breaking point, the desperate veterans petitioned the Minister for Defense, Sir George Pierce, for heavy military intervention. Which brings us to the first campaign: machine guns deployed.
Minister Pierce actually agreed to help, thinking the birds would provide excellent target practice for his troops. But the tactical mismatch here was just unbelievable. On one side, you have a three-man military detachment, Major Meredith alongside Sergeant McMurray and Gunner O'Halloran. They hauled 30-pound Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of heavy ammunition into the sweltering outback. On the other side, 20,000 heavily feathered birds that can sprint at 50 kilometers per hour.
You can probably guess where this is going. The tactical execution was a complete disaster, perfectly highlighted by their first major ambush on November 2nd and 4th near the Campion Dam. The soldiers waited for 1,000 emus to wander into point-blank range, opened fire, and after killing only about a dozen birds, the Lewis gun jammed. Yep. Before they could clear the breach, the entire flock just scattered into the brush.
Now we enter the phase of emu guerrilla tactics, where nature really fights back.
The military very quickly realized they weren't just shooting at dumb animals. Army observers documented the emus using actual guerrilla tactics. To neutralize the advantage of automatic weapons, the birds split into small, evasive units, running in wild zigzag patterns. Major Meredith even noted that each pack had a 6-foot-tall lookout bird standing guard to warn the flock of danger. Plus, their tough hides and thick feathers acted almost like armor, completely absorbing glancing gunfire.
At this point, the military was getting desperate. Trying to match the birds' incredible speed, Meredith ordered a machine gun mounted to the back of a Ford truck for a high-speed chase. It failed spectacularly. The rough outback terrain made it utterly impossible to aim, and the brutal bouncing completely destroyed the truck's frame before they could score a single hit.
In his official reports, Major Meredith actually began to personify the enemy. Expressing genuine awe, he famously stated that if they had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world. He compared them to Zulus, saying they could face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks.
That brings us to public ridicule and the aftermath. Who truly won?
Unsurprisingly, word of this farcical operation quickly reached Canberra, turning the whole war into an international laughingstock. Politicians brutally mocked the military in Parliament. Senator Guthrie publicly questioned if the dramatic use of machine guns was really necessary, while others sarcastically asked if they should strike medals for the surviving emus. So under intense pressure from the media and the RSPCA, the troops were ultimately pulled out for good.
And when you look at the final numbers, they paint a picture of total inefficiency. Major Meredith claimed roughly 986 confirmed kills. That means the military wasted exactly 10 heavy machine gun bullets for every single bird they managed to take down. But contrast that with a simple government bounty system introduced in 1934 that empowered the locals and resulted in over 57,000 bounties claimed in just 6 months.
The government eventually realized that the only permanent long-term defense against the migrating emus wasn't bullets at all.
It was simply blocking them out by expanding extensive pest exclusion infrastructure, like the massive 135-kilometer Lake Moore emu fence.
So the modern military literally had to pack up their machine guns and retreat, while the emu population continues to absolutely thrive today, with nearly 750,000 birds across the continent. It really leaves us with one fascinating question to ponder. When it comes to humanity's battle against nature, who truly owns the Australian outback?